So for more on the summit now, I'm joined by Sung-Yoon Lee, Korean Studies professor and assistant professor at the Fletcher School. So thank you so much for joining us. First, President Trump and Kim, they'll meet first alone with only translators, no witness here. First, is this normal or should someone be there to kind of witness and accurately document what is said between those two leaders?
You know, unlike a blind date, a summit meeting takes months of preparation, and both parties want to eliminate any kind of surprise, spontaneity, everything scripted, and the final handshake at the summit meeting is a symbolic reaffirmation of all the agreements already reached. Now, Trump and Kim are going about this the opposite way. That's because Kim Jong-un has been planning for this moment for years. North Korea is good at rolling out this two-act play. First act, relentless provocations, raising the stakes, creating a crisis-like situation, establishing your credibility. Act two, change the tune from molto agitato to placido, smile and say, I didn't mean it, let's talk about denuclearization. This is really Rambo 4 at this point. We've seen this sequelization of the same scheme over and over again. How does one presume that a state that spent about 50 years, worked very hard to protect the bomb, will give it up in a single meeting with the U.S. president?
They have been preparing for a very long time. So very little is known about the agenda, though. We've heard talk about that it will focus on convincing Kim to get rid of those nuclear weapons, as you just mentioned a moment ago. Now, if that's the case, what concessions would the U.S. have to make?
Well, the U.S. has already made many concessions, not only in terms of giving North Korea this kind of PR moment under the spotlight, but also the U.S. has effectively said that the U.S. will no longer enforce sanctions. And that comes as a great relief to virtually every UN member state out there, because it's a pain enforcing sanctions. Like domestic law enforcement, it takes a lot of time and effort, continual effort. So if the U.S. is prematurely relaxing sanctions, all other nations will follow suit. China and South Korea, both which want to return to the heady old days of giving unconditionally to North Korea, over $1 billion a year in the case of China, almost $1 billion in the case of South Korea. Now they will argue to Trump, to the U.S. government, look, we have a good thing going, a chance for peace and reconciliation. Let's not put more pressure on North Korea and let's all be patient. And thus, Kim will have bought time and money with which to perfect his own nuclear posture review.
So sanctions is a big deal here. We'll see if Kim Jong-un is willing to budge and get rid of all his nuclear weapons. Finally here, is this meeting a big deal for the American people or really for the Trump administration here?
You know, there are political gains to be had by both parties. President Trump will be pretty well positioned to argue in the short term that he has diffused this tense standoff, averted the crisis, has controlled the North Korean dictator, has made an emotional connection with Kim Jong-un and so forth. And maybe Mr. Trump will be then eligible for a Nobel Peace Prize. Who knows? But in the long term, it will come back to haunt the United States and its allies.
Sung-Yoon Lee, Korean Studies professor and assistant professor at Fletcher School, thank you so much for your insight into this very big story today.
Thank you.